I was 70 years old when I discovered my grandson had been born, not from my son, but from a neighbor's casual coffee shop comment. 24 hours late. 24 hours of celebrations, photos, first moments that should have included me. When I finally reached the hospital, still shaking, still trying to process the betrayal, my own son looked me in the eye and said, I wasn't close family enough to enter. I stood in that sterile hallway, watching strangers walk past me into rooms where their families waited, and I realized something had died between us that day. I just didn't know yet how much worse it would get, or how spectacularly I would eventually walk away. If you're watching this, stay until the end. What happened next changed everything, and please hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. I need you to understand something before I go any further. I wasn't a perfect mother. I made mistakes. What parent doesn't? There were times when Ryan was growing up that I worked too much, missed a school play here or there, probably said the wrong thing when he needed me to just listen. But I loved that boy with everything I had. After his father died, it was just the two of us for years. We had our rough patches, sure, but I thought we'd come through it. I thought we were okay. God, how wrong I was. The day I found out about Noah's birth, I'd been at Murphy's Coffee House on 5th Street. It was a Tuesday morning, unseasonably warm for October, and I'd treated myself to one of those overpriced lattes that taste like liquid dessert. I was sitting by the window watching people hurry past with their purposeful strides, thinking about how empty my house felt since Richard died 2 years prior. That's when Carol Henderson slid into the seat across from me. Evelyn! Her face was bright, genuinely happy. Congratulations! I heard the wonderful news. You must be over the moon. I smiled, confused. News? About your grandson, of course. Susan Miller's daughter works in labor and delivery at St. Catherine's. She said Ryan and Vanessa had the most beautiful baby boy yesterday morning. You must be exhausted from staying at the hospital all night. The world didn't stop. That's what they say in movies, right? Time stops, everything goes silent, dramatic music swells. But that's not how it happened. Instead, everything kept moving at exactly the same pace while my brain tried to catch up with words that couldn't possibly be true. Yesterday morning, I repeated. My voice sounded strange, distant. Carol's smile faltered. Yes, around 7 a.m., I think Susan said. Is everything... I don't remember excusing myself. I don't remember driving to St. Catherine's Hospital, though I must have, because my car was in the parking lot when I finally came back to awareness, standing in the maternity ward corridor like a ghost haunting a life that should have been mine. The nurse at the desk had kind eyes. I remember that detail with painful clarity. I'm looking for Ryan Mercer's room, I said. I'm his mother. His wife Vanessa gave birth yesterday, and I just found out. I need to see my grandson. Something flickered across her face. Pity, maybe. Or recognition. Let me check for you, Mrs. Mercer. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly. I couldn't hear the words, but I watched her expression shift from professional courtesy to uncomfortable tension. When she hung up, she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. I'm sorry, but the family has requested no visitors at this time, except those on their approved list. I'm his mother. I understand, but his mother. I'm not some random visitor. That's my son in there, my grandson. Mrs. Mercer, I'm truly sorry, but they were very clear. Only approved immediate family members. Immediate family members. The phrase felt like a slap. I stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, trying to decide what to do next. Call Ryan? March down the hallway until I found the right room? Make a scene? Some part of me, the part that had been raised to be polite, to not cause trouble, to respect boundaries, kept me frozen in place. Finally, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed Ryan's number. It rang 4 times. I counted each one. Mom! His voice was flat, unsurprised, like he'd been expecting this call, dreading it. Ryan, honey, I just found out. I'm here at the hospital. Can I come see you? See the baby? A pause. In that silence, I heard everything. Now's not a great time, Mom. Vanessa's exhausted and we're trying to keep things quiet and calm. Maybe in a few days when we're home and settled. A few days? Ryan, I'm your mother. I'm standing right here in the hospital. I drove here the moment I heard. I just want to meet my grandson, hold him for a minute. I won't stay long, I promise. Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Those words. I still hear them sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep. Harder than it needs to be? You didn't tell me. You didn't call. I found out from Carol Henderson at a coffee shop like I'm some acquaintance, not your mother. How is that not already as hard as it could possibly be? Look, I can't do this right now. His voice had that edge I remembered from his teenage years, when he'd shut down and shut me out. Vanessa needs me. The baby needs me. We'll talk when I'm home. Ryan, goodbye, Mom. The line went dead. I stood there in that hallway for another 20 minutes. Nurses passed. Doctors hurried by. Families celebrated, pushing balloons and teddy bears toward rooms where new life waited. And I stood there, phone in hand, trying to understand how I'd become someone my own son wouldn't let through the door. A man about my age, maybe a few years younger, came around the corner carrying a massive "It's a Boy" balloon. He was beaming, practically floating. "Excuse me," he said cheerfully as he moved past me. Then he stopped, looked back. "Are you all right?" I must have looked as destroyed as I felt. "I'm fine," I lied. "Congratulations." "Thank you. First grandchild. I never knew it could feel like this." He laughed, joyful and oblivious. "You here for a grandchild too?" "Yes," I whispered, "but I'm not allowed to meet him." His smile died. He opened his mouth, closed it, clearly having no idea what to say to that. Finally, he just nodded awkwardly and continued down the hall. I watched him go, watched him get buzzed into a room where excited voices immediately erupted in greeting. Through the briefly opened door, I glimpsed a young couple, exhausted and radiant, passing a tiny bundle to the older man. His whole face transformed. He was crying. That should have been me. I drove home in a daze. The house felt enormous and suffocating at the same time. The guest room I'd carefully prepared, Noah's room, I'd been calling it ever since Ryan and Vanessa told me they'd chosen the name, mocked me with its cheerful yellow walls and pristine crib that had cost more than I wanted to admit. I'd spent weeks getting it perfect. The mobile over the crib played soft lullabies. I'd bought books, so many books, planning to read to him every night when they visited. There was a rocking chair by the window where I'd imagined feeding him bottles, singing him to sleep, being the grandmother I'd dreamed of becoming. All of it. Completely pointless. I called Ryan again that night. It went to voicemail. I left a message trying to keep my voice steady. "Ryan, sweetheart, I'm sorry if I upset you earlier. I know this is an overwhelming time, but please, I'm asking you, let me come by tomorrow. Let me meet Noah. I'm his grandmother. I love him already without even having seen his face. Please call me back." He didn't call back. I tried again the next morning. Voicemail. That afternoon, I drove to their house. A beautiful colonial in the suburbs that I'd helped them with the down payment for. My gift to them when they got married, because that's what you do. You help your children build their lives. Vanessa's BMW was in the driveway. My heart jumped. They were home. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Through the frosted glass, I saw movement, a shadow passing by. Someone was definitely home. "Ryan? Vanessa? It's Mom. Please, I just want to see the baby for a few minutes." Nothing. I knocked harder. "I know you're in there. Please, we need to talk about this." The shadow moved again, then disappeared toward the back of the house. They were hiding from me, in their own home, hiding like I was some kind of threat. I sat in my car outside their house for 40 minutes, hoping they'd change their minds, hoping Ryan would come out and explain that this was all some terrible misunderstanding. Maybe Vanessa had been having postpartum complications. Maybe there was some medical reason they couldn't have visitors. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation I just couldn't see yet. But deep down, I already knew the truth. This wasn't about Vanessa's recovery or the baby's health. This was deliberate. This was a choice. They were choosing to exclude me. Over the next week, I tried everything: texts, emails, more phone calls. I even reached out to Vanessa's mother, Patricia, who I'd never particularly gotten along with, but who I thought might understand how painful this was. "Oh, Evelyn," she'd said with barely concealed satisfaction. "Yes, Noah is absolutely precious. We were at the hospital the whole time, of course. Vanessa needed her mother there. You understand." Of course she'd been there. Of course. I don't suppose you could talk to them, I'd ventured. Help Ryan see that I just want to be involved in my grandson's life? Well, dear, I think they have their reasons. You know how Ryan feels about certain things. Perhaps it's best to give them space and wait until they're ready. Certain things. What the hell did that mean? I sent gifts, a beautiful handmade quilt from a local artisan, a silver frame with baby's first photo engraved on it, age-appropriate toys that I'd researched obsessively online. Everything was delivered to their house, nothing was acknowledged. 3 weeks after Noah's birth, I finally received a text from Ryan. Mom, we need some boundaries. Vanessa and I have discussed it, and we think it's best if we take some time as our immediate family to bond with Noah. We'll reach out when we're ready for visits. Please respect this. I stared at that message for so long the screen went dark. Boundaries. Immediate family. When we're ready. Each phrase was a nail in the coffin of the relationship I thought we had. I wrote back carefully, deleting and rewriting a dozen times. Ryan, I respect that you need time to adjust to being parents, but I'm hurting. I found out about Noah's birth from a stranger. I wasn't allowed to visit in the hospital. I don't understand what I've done wrong. Can we please just talk? I love you. I love Noah. I just want to be part of his life. 3 hours later, he responded, This isn't about you, Mom. We need to do what's best for our family. Please stop showing up at our house and sending things. We'll contact you when we're ready. Not about me. As if my feelings, my relationship with my only son, my right to know my only grandchild didn't matter at all. I showed the messages to my friend Linda over coffee a few days later. I'd been holding it all in, trying to process it alone, but the isolation was eating me alive. Jesus, Evelyn, Linda looked genuinely shocked. This is cruel. What possible reason could they have? I don't know. I keep going through every conversation we had during Vanessa's pregnancy, trying to figure out if I said something wrong, did something offensive, but I can't think of anything. We weren't super close, but we were fine, or I thought we were fine. Have you considered that maybe this is about Vanessa? Maybe she's one of those women who doesn't want to share her baby with anyone. Maybe. It had crossed my mind. But Ryan's going along with it. He's my son. How can he just cut me out like this? Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I don't have answers, but I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's wrong. They're wrong. The conversation kept me sane for about a week. My therapist, Dr. Morrison, helped more. I'd started seeing her after Richard died just to process the grief and loneliness. Now our sessions had taken on a darker tone. You're experiencing a profound loss, she said during one particularly difficult session. In some ways, this might be harder than if something had happened to Ryan or the baby, because they're alive and well and deliberately excluding you. That's a unique kind of grief. I feel like I'm mourning someone who isn't dead, I admitted. Mourning a relationship that might never have existed the way I thought it did. That's exactly what you're doing, and it's valid. All of it is valid. The hurt, the confusion, the anger. The anger surprised me. I'd always been someone who turned pain inward, who blamed myself first. But as weeks turned into months, a new emotion started burning underneath the hurt. I was furious at Ryan for his cowardice, for not even having the decency to explain himself. Furious at Vanessa for whatever role she was playing in this. Furious at myself for all the times I'd helped them, supported them, been there for them, only to be discarded the moment I was no longer convenient. Noah's first Christmas came and went. I sent a package, a wooden train set, a soft blanket, a card that I agonized over for hours. I tried to keep it light, non-accusatory, just a grandmother loving her grandson, trying to stay connected even from a distance. The package was never acknowledged. For all I know, they threw it away unopened. I spent Christmas Day alone. Linda invited me to her family dinner, but I couldn't bear to be around happy grandparents playing with their grandchildren to see what I was missing. Instead, I sat in Noah's room. I still couldn't stop thinking of it that way, and cried until I had nothing left. At some point during that horrible holiday, sitting in the dark with just the glow of the nightlight I'd bought for a baby who would never sleep under it, I made a decision. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep begging for scraps of affection from people who clearly didn't want me in their lives. I had to find a way to survive this, to build some kind of life even with this enormous hole in it. Dr. Morrison helped me set boundaries of my own. No more unannounced visits, no more desperate phone calls. I could send birthday cards and Christmas gifts, but I wouldn't expect responses. I would work on accepting that this was the relationship I had with my son now, essentially none at all, and grieve accordingly. You're allowed to stop fighting for a relationship when the other person has made it clear they don't want it, she told me. That's not giving up. That's survival. So I stopped fighting. I didn't stop hurting. God, I didn't stop hurting. But I stopped letting the hurt control every day. Noah's first birthday came. I sent a card with a check for his college fund. No response. His second birthday. Another card. Another check. Silence. I took up painting, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. I joined a book club. I volunteered at the library. I traveled a little. Nothing extravagant, just weekend trips to nearby cities. I was learning to be alone without being lonely, though the distinction felt razor thin most days. But that room, I couldn't bring myself to change Noah's room. It stayed frozen in time, a shrine to a relationship that never was. Sometimes I'd go in there and just sit in the rocking chair, imagining conversations we'd never have, books we'd never read together, memories we'd never make. People at church would ask about my family. I learned to smile and give vague, pleasant answers. Oh, Ryan's doing well. Busy with work and the little one. You know how it is. As if we were a normal family with normal distance between us, not people who hadn't spoken in over 2 years. The lying got easier with practice. Everything got easier with practice, actually. The numb kind of easier that comes from accepting that some things are just broken beyond repair. I thought that was how the rest of my life would go. I'd grow older, more distant from the child I'd raised, a stranger to the grandchild I loved from afar. Eventually, maybe, the pain would dull enough that I could go whole days without thinking about it. Then, 3 weeks after Noah's third birthday, I bought a lottery ticket. I almost never played the lottery. Seemed like throwing money away. But I'd stopped at a gas station on the way home from a particularly good painting class, feeling unusually optimistic, and there was the sign, Jackpot $47 million. On a whim, I bought a ticket. I forgot about it completely until I was cleaning out my purse a week later and the ticket fell out. The drawing had been the night before. I almost threw it away without checking, but something made me pull up the numbers on my phone. I had to check 3 times before my brain could process what my eyes were seeing. Every single number matched. Every single one. I sat down heavily at my kitchen table, ticket in one trembling hand, phone in the other, checking and rechecking because this couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. I was a widow living alone in a too-quiet house, estranged from my only family, just trying to get through days that all looked the same. I wasn't someone who won the lottery, but the numbers didn't lie. After taxes, I was looking at roughly $30 million. $30 million. I didn't tell anyone at first. I needed time to think, to process, to figure out what this meant. I met with a financial advisor, a lawyer. I set up trusts and accounts, protected myself the way lottery winners are supposed to do if they have any sense. The whole time it felt surreal, like I was playing a role in someone else's life. I still hadn't told Ryan. We hadn't spoken in 3 years. 3 years of silence, of forced acceptance, of learning to live with the wound. Why would I tell him now? But the news was going to get out eventually. It always did. This was a small enough community that a winner this size would be news. I could try to keep it quiet, but realistically, people would find out. I decided to wait and see what happened. I didn't have to wait long. Exactly 9 days after I claimed the winnings, 9 days after my entire financial reality shifted, my phone rang at 8 in the morning. Ryan's name lit up the screen. I stared at it for 4 rings before answering. Hello? Mom, hey! His voice was warm, cheerful, like we'd just talked yesterday instead of 3 years ago. Like he hadn't spent 3 years pretending I didn't exist. I hope I'm not calling too early. I know you're usually up by now. He knew I was usually up by now, as if he knew anything about my routine anymore. Ryan. I kept my voice neutral, careful. This is unexpected. I know. It's been too long. Way too long. And that's on me, Mom. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I realize I've handled things badly. Really badly. I shut you out when I should have been bringing you in. I said nothing. Waited. The thing is, Vanessa and I were just so overwhelmed when Noah was born. New parents, you know? And we made some decisions about boundaries that probably weren't fair to you. I can see that now. We were too strict, too protective. I should have reached out sooner to fix this." Every word sounded rehearsed, like he'd practiced this speech in front of a mirror. "It's been 3 years," I said quietly. I know, and I'm sorry, I really am. But I'm hoping it's not too late to fix things. Noah asks about you sometimes. He's seen photos, and he wants to meet his grandmother. We've been telling him stories about you." Stories. They'd been telling him stories about me while refusing to let me be part of his actual life. "What changed?" I asked. "Why now?" A pause. Just long enough to confirm what I already suspected. "I saw the news," he admitted, "about your lottery win. It was in the local paper yesterday. Mom, that's incredible. I'm so happy for you." There it was. The real reason for this sudden burst of filial affection. "I see. Look, I know how this might seem, me calling right after finding out about the money, but I swear that's not why I'm reaching out. I've been meaning to for months. This just gave me the push I needed to actually do it. I'm a coward, okay? I admit it. I let things go on too long because I was afraid it was too late to fix. But it's not. It can't be." His voice cracked on those last words. And despite everything, despite 3 years of silence and hurt and unanswered cards, some part of me wanted to believe him. That's the problem with loving someone. The part of you that wants to trust them never completely dies, no matter how much evidence piles up against them. "When would you want to visit?" I heard myself ask. "How about this weekend? Saturday? We could come by around noon, have lunch, let you and Noah get to know each other properly. He's at such a fun age now, really talking up a storm. You're going to love him, Mom." I'm going to love him. As if I hadn't loved him since before he was born. As if I hadn't spent 3 years aching for a chance to know him. "Saturday works," I said. "Perfect. That's perfect. And Mom, I really am sorry. I know I've got a lot to make up for. But I want to try. I want us to be a family again." We hadn't been a family for a long time, but I didn't say that out loud. When we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for an hour, just breathing, trying to sort through the tangle of emotions. Relief that I'd finally get to meet Noah. Suspicion about Ryan's timing. Hope that maybe, somehow, this could be real. Fear that I was setting myself up for even worse heartbreak. Linda was less conflicted when I told her later that day. "He saw the money and suddenly remembered he has a mother? Evelyn, come on. You can't be considering this. He's my son. And Noah is my grandson. Whether the timing is suspicious or not, this might be my only chance to be part of their lives. Or it might be a chance for them to take advantage of you. Promise me you'll be careful. Protect yourself." I will. But I wasn't sure I would, because somewhere deep down, I wanted this so badly, wanted to believe in redemption and second chances and families healing, that I might overlook everything else just to have them back. Saturday couldn't come fast enough, and came too fast. I cleaned the house obsessively, made lunch, sandwiches and salad, nothing too elaborate, but enough to show I cared. Changed my outfit 3 times. Set out photo albums of Ryan growing up, thinking maybe we could look through them together, share memories. At noon exactly, the doorbell rang. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Ryan stood there, older than the last time I'd seen him, with traces of gray at his temples and more lines around his eyes. Vanessa stood beside him in expensive athleisure wear, her blonde hair perfectly styled. And between them, holding both their hands, was Noah, my grandson. He had Ryan's eyes and Vanessa's delicate features, and he was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. He looked up at me with curiosity and a little shyness. "Noah," Ryan said, his voice soft. "This is your grandma Evelyn. Can you say hi?" "Hi," Noah said quietly. And just like that, 3 years of hurt cracked open and bled fresh. "Hi, sweetheart," I managed. "It's so wonderful to finally meet you." I stepped aside to let them in, my heart hammering so hard I thought they might hear it. Noah walked carefully, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings with wide eyes. He was clutching a small stuffed dinosaur, holding it against his chest like a shield. "Your house is lovely, Evelyn," Vanessa said, her voice bright and warm in a way I'd never heard before. I forgot how charming it is here. She'd been to my house exactly twice before Noah was born. Both times she'd spent most of the visit on her phone. "Thank you," I said. Please, come in. Sit down. Can I get anyone something to drink? Water would be great, Ryan said, settling onto the couch. Vanessa sat beside him, smoothing her yoga pants. Noah remained standing, looking around with cautious interest. I went to the kitchen, hands trembling as I filled glasses. Through the doorway, I could hear Ryan talking quietly to Noah, encouraging him to explore a little. When I came back with the drinks, Noah had moved to the bookshelf where I kept some of Richard's old photo albums. Noah likes books, Vanessa offered. He's very advanced for his age, already knows his whole alphabet. That's wonderful, I said, setting the glasses down. I wanted to ask Noah if he wanted to see some picture books, wanted to offer to read to him, but I didn't know if I had that right yet. He was my grandson, but he was also a stranger. Mom, the house looks great, Ryan said. You've done some updating since I was here last. Since he was here last. 4 years ago, maybe more. Before he got married. Just little things here and there, I said, keeping busy. An awkward silence settled over us. Noah had pulled down one of the photo albums and was flipping through it on the floor. I watched him, trying to memorize everything about this moment, the way his small fingers turned the pages, the concentration on his face, the cowlick at the crown of his head that reminded me of Ryan at that age. So, Vanessa said brightly, we heard your incredible news, a lottery winner. That must have been such a shock. There it was. Less than 5 minutes in, and we were already circling the real reason for this visit. It was unexpected, I agreed carefully. I bet, Ryan said. What are you planning to do with it? Any big plans? Travel? I'm still figuring that out. It's overwhelming, to be honest. A lot to process. I'm sure, Vanessa said. Her eyes drifted around the room, taking in details with an assessing quality that made my skin prickle. You'll want to be smart about it. Invest wisely. Make sure you're taken care of in retirement. I've spoken with financial advisors, I said, making sure everything is handled properly. That's good. That's really good. Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You know, if you ever want a second opinion on anything, I work with investments now. I could take a look at whatever they've set up for you. Make sure you're getting the best advice. I hadn't known he worked with investments. Then again, I didn't know much about his life anymore. I appreciate that, I said noncommittally. Noah had abandoned the photo album and was now standing in front of me, studying me with those serious eyes. Your grandma? He asked. I am, I said softly. Is it okay if I give you a hug? He considered this for a moment, then nodded. I knelt down, my knees protesting the movement, and opened my arms. He stepped into them, small and warm and real, and I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from crying. I'm very happy to meet you, Noah, I whispered. Me too, he said simply, then pulled back. Do you have toys? The question hit me like a punch. Yes, I had toys. A whole room full of them that I'd bought 3 years ago, that had never been touched, that I couldn't bear to get rid of. I do, I managed. Would you like to see them? His face lit up. Yes! I glanced at Ryan and Vanessa. Is that all right? Of course, Vanessa said. Lead the way. I took Noah's hand, his fingers so small in mine, and led him down the hallway to the room I'd prepared so long ago. I opened the door and he gasped. Whoa! The room was exactly as I'd left it. The crib, the rocking chair, the shelves full of books and toys. Sunlight streamed through the yellow curtains, making everything glow. Noah ran to the toy chest and started pulling things out with the enthusiasm only a 3-year-old can muster. Behind me, I heard Ryan and Vanessa enter the room. Mom, Ryan said quietly. You kept all this? I couldn't get rid of it, I admitted. I kept hoping. Vanessa walked slowly around the room, touching things. The mobile, the stack of books, the framed photo on the dresser, one I'd taken of Ryan when he was about Noah's age, the only picture I had of my grandson's father as a little boy. This must have cost a fortune, she said, an odd thing to comment on. Not how touching it was that I'd kept the room ready. Not how hard it must have been to walk past this door every day. Just what it cost. I wanted him to have everything he needed here, I said. Noah had found the wooden train set I'd sent for his first Christmas and was making delighted sounds. Mom, can we play with this? Let Grandma show you how it works, buddy, Ryan said. I'm sure she bought it with you in mind. I sat down on the floor with Noah, ignoring my protesting joints. and helped him connect the train tracks. He chattered away as we played, telling me about his favorite things, his friends at preschool, a dog he wanted to get. I absorbed every word, every detail, trying to make up for 3 years of not knowing him. Ryan and Vanessa watched from the doorway for a while, then retreated. I could hear them talking quietly in the living room, though I couldn't make out the words. I told myself I didn't care. Right now, in this moment, I had my grandson. That was enough. After about 30 minutes, Vanessa called from the living room. "Noah, honey, time for lunch." "Can Grandma come?" Noah asked, looking up at me. "Of course I can," I said. "I made lunch for everyone." We ate at my dining room table, the sandwiches and salad that suddenly seemed inadequate. Noah sat in a chair with a cushion boost, swinging his legs and eating in that messy, enthusiastic way kids do. I couldn't stop looking at him. "So, Mom," Ryan said between bites, "we wanted to talk to you about something." Here it comes, I thought. We've realized how much we've missed by keeping Noah away from you, and how much he's missed by not having his grandmother in his life. We want to fix that. "I want that too," I said carefully. "We were thinking," Vanessa picked up smoothly, "that maybe we could set up a regular schedule. Visit every other weekend, maybe? Let you really get to know Noah. He could even stay overnight once you two are more comfortable with each other." Overnight. Having Noah stay overnight. It was everything I'd wanted, dangled in front of me like a prize. "I would love that," I said, and meant it. "There's just one thing," Ryan said. "A favor we need to ask, and I hate to bring this up so soon, but the timing is kind of urgent." I waited, stomach tightening. We're in a bit of a financial bind, nothing we can't handle, but it's tight right now. I'm between investments, and Vanessa's been staying home with Noah, so we're on one income. The mortgage is manageable, but with Noah's preschool and everything else, we're stretched thin. "We've always been so independent," Vanessa added. "We hate asking for help, but with your windfall, we thought maybe you could float us a small loan, just to get through the next few months until Ryan's new investment pays out. We'd pay you back with interest." I looked at Noah, oblivious to the conversation, making his sandwich do a little dance on his plate. I looked at my son, who couldn't quite meet my eyes. I looked at Vanessa, who met my gaze directly, almost challenging. "How much are we talking about?" I heard myself ask. 20,000 would get us through," Ryan said quickly. "Maybe 25 to be safe, but we'd pay it back. Every penny." $25,000. Pocket change compared to what I'd won, but that wasn't the point. "Let me think about it," I said. Something flickered across Vanessa's face. Irritation, maybe. "Of course. We're not trying to pressure you. It's just that the mortgage payment is due in 2 weeks, and we're short this month." I said I'll think about it, I repeated, firmer this time. The rest of lunch was strained. The easy warmth from earlier had evaporated, replaced by a tension that even Noah seemed to sense. He got quieter, more clingy with Vanessa. They left shortly after with promises to call soon to set up that regular schedule. Ryan hugged me at the door, and it felt like hugging a stranger. "Thanks for today, Mom," he said. "And thanks for considering helping us out. I know it's a lot to ask." "It is," I agreed. After they left, I sat in Noah's room for a long time. The train set was still on the floor where we'd left it, pieces scattered like evidence of something good that happened here, however briefly. I called Linda. "They asked for money, didn't they?" she said immediately. $25,000. "Jesus Christ, Evelyn. They said it's a loan, that they'd pay it back." "Do you believe them?" I didn't answer. "Evelyn, do you honestly believe they'd pay you back?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But if I don't help them, will they let me see Noah again?" Today was wonderful. He's perfect, Linda, and I miss so much already. What if saying no means losing him all over again? What if saying yes means getting used? What if this is just the first of many asks? You give them 25,000 now. What's to stop them from coming back for 50 or 100? "I don't know," I said again, more quietly. "Talk to Dr. Morrison before you do anything," Linda urged. "Promise me." I promise. But I already knew what Dr. Morrison would say. She'd tell me to set boundaries, to recognize manipulation when I saw it, to protect myself. All the things I knew intellectually but couldn't seem to feel emotionally, not when my grandson's face was still fresh in my mind. Ryan called 2 days later. "Hey, Mom, just checking in. Noah hasn't stopped talking about his train set. Thank you for such a lovely afternoon." "It meant everything to me," I said. So, he paused. Have you had a chance to think about what we discussed? I hate to press, but that mortgage payment deadline is coming up fast. Ryan, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell me when Noah was born? Silence on the other end, long enough that I thought he might hang up. Mom, I don't think dredging up the past is helpful right now. I need to understand. You shut me out for 3 years. 3 years, Ryan. And the moment you find out I have money, suddenly you remember I exist. How is that supposed to make me feel? That's not fair. I told you, I've been wanting to reconnect. The money has nothing to do with it. Then answer the question. Why did you keep me away from Noah? Another pause. Vanessa thought it was better to keep things simple at first. Just the three of us bonding. And then time passed and it felt harder to reach out. But I'm reaching out now. Can't that be enough? Vanessa thought. What about what you thought? What did you want? Mom, I'm trying to fix things. I'm trying to make this right. But if you're going to keep punishing me for the past, maybe this isn't going to work. There it was. The threat underneath the reconciliation. Play along or lose access to Noah again. I'm not trying to punish you, I said, exhausted. I'm trying to understand. Then help us, he said. Help us get stable. And I promise we'll make you a real part of Noah's life. Regular visits, holidays together. Everything you've been missing, but we need this help first. Help us first, and then you get what you want. Love is transaction, family as negotiation. I'll transfer the money tomorrow, I heard myself say. Mom, really? Thank you. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much this means. I thought I had some idea. The money left my account the next day. $25,000 wired to Ryan's account. It felt like ripping out a piece of myself and handing it over, hoping it would be enough to buy what couldn't be bought. Ryan sent a text immediately. Got it. You're a lifesaver, Mom. We'll set up that schedule this weekend. Promise. The weekend came and went. No call. I waited a week before reaching out. Hi, Ryan. Just checking in. Would love to set up another visit with Noah soon. His response came 6 hours later. Sorry, crazy busy. We'll call soon. Another week passed. I sent a card to Noah, just a little thinking of you card with a cartoon dinosaur on the front. I included a photo from our visit, the two of us with the train set. No acknowledgement. When I finally called Ryan directly, he answered on the fourth ring, sounding distracted. Hey, Mom, can't really talk right now. Noah's having a rough day. I just wanted to plan another visit. You said we'd set up a regular schedule. I know. Things have been hectic. Vanessa's mom is in town, and you know how that goes. Maybe in a couple weeks? Ryan, you promised. And we will. I'm not going back on that. Just need things to settle down first. I've got to go. I'll call you later. He didn't call later. I tried 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time I got variations of the same excuse. Too busy. Bad timing. Soon. The pattern was devastatingly familiar. I'd been here before. The promises, the delays, the slow fade back into silence. Only this time, I was $25,000 poorer. Linda was furious when I told her. He scammed you. His own mother. That's what this was from the beginning. I don't know that for sure, I said weakly. Evelyn, wake up. He found out about the lottery, calculated exactly how to get money out of you, used Noah as bait, got what he wanted, and vanished again. This is textbook manipulation. He's my son. He's an adult man who is using you, and you're letting him because you're so desperate to be a grandmother that you'll accept any scraps they throw at you, even when those scraps cost $25,000. Her words hurt because they were true. I had let myself be used. I'd known it was happening and participated anyway, telling myself that maybe this time would be different, that love could fix what was broken between us. What do I do? I asked. You stop giving them power over you. You accept that they've shown you exactly who they are, and you believe them. But accepting it and living with it were different things. Dr. Morrison was gentler but equally direct. You're grieving twice now, she said during our session. Once for the relationship you wanted with Ryan and Noah, and now for the person you hoped Ryan would be. The son who would come back and apologize, who would mean it, who would let you in out of genuine love rather than financial need. That version of Ryan doesn't exist, Evelyn. Or if he does, He's so buried under whatever else is going on with him that you can't reach him. I feel like such a fool. You're not a fool. You're someone who loves her child and wants to believe in redemption. That's not foolish, it's human, but it is painful, especially when the other person can't or won't meet you there. I decided to try one more time. One last attempt to understand, to reach him, to salvage something. I drove to their house unannounced. I knew it was probably a mistake, knew I was violating the boundaries Ryan had set, but I needed to look him in the eye and hear the truth. Vanessa's BMW was in the driveway. So was Ryan's Audi. They were home. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Through the window I could see movement inside, shadows passing, but no one came to the door. I knocked harder. Ryan, I know you're home. I just want to talk. Nothing. Please, 5 minutes. I'm not here to fight. I just need to understand what's happening. The door finally opened, but it wasn't Ryan. It was Vanessa, and her expression was cold. Evelyn, this isn't a good time. When is a good time? I've been trying to reach Ryan for weeks. He's busy. We're busy. You can't just show up like this. I gave you $25,000, which we're grateful for, but that doesn't mean you can show up uninvited and demand attention. I'm not demanding attention. I want to see my grandson. Ryan promised regular visits. Plans change. Vanessa's voice was flat, matter of fact. Look, we appreciate what you did for us, but you need to respect our boundaries. If Ryan wants to reach out, he will. But you can't keep pushing. I want my money back. The words surprised both of us. I hadn't planned to say them. Vanessa's expression hardened. It was a gift. Ryan said it was a loan. Well, we don't have it anymore. We paid the mortgage like we told you we would. So unless you want us and Noah to end up homeless, I suggest you let this go. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of the living room. New furniture, a massive flat-screen TV that definitely hadn't been there before. Expensive-looking decor. You bought a new TV, I said. That's none of your business. I can see it from here. You said you needed money for the mortgage. We did need it for the mortgage. What we do with our own money after that is our concern. That's not your money. That's my money. Money I gave you in good faith, which we used to keep a roof over Noah's head. I don't know what you want from us, Evelyn. I want to see my grandson. That's all I've ever wanted. Then maybe you should have been a better mother, Vanessa said quietly. Maybe Ryan would want you around more if you hadn't screwed him up so badly that he needs therapy to deal with his childhood. The words hit like a slap. What? You didn't know? Your son has spent years in therapy dealing with the damage you caused, the emotional neglect, the way you chose work over him over and over, the way you made him feel like he was never enough. So forgive us if we're not eager to expose Noah to that same treatment. I stood there, speechless. Ryan was in therapy because of me? Because I was a bad mother? That's not true, I managed. I loved him. I did my best. Your best wasn't good enough, Vanessa said. And now you're trying to buy your way into Noah's life the same way you tried to buy Ryan's affection, with money instead of actual presence. It didn't work then, and it won't work now. She started to close the door. Wait, I said. Please, let me talk to Ryan. No. And if you show up here again, we'll call the police for harassment. Leave us alone, Evelyn. The door shut in my face. I stood there for probably 5 minutes, unable to move, unable to process what had just happened. Then I walked back to my car on shaking legs and sat in the driver's seat, staring at nothing. Was it true? Had I been a bad mother? I thought back to Ryan's childhood, the long hours at work after Richard died, trying to keep us afloat financially. The times I was too tired to play, too stressed to fully listen. The way I'd pushed him toward college, toward success, because I wanted him to have opportunities I never had. Had he experienced all of that as neglect? As choosing work over him? I drove home in a fog. Once there, I did something I hadn't let myself do in 3 years. I went into Noah's room and I let myself fall apart completely. I cried for hours, ugly, choking sobs that felt like they were ripping me open. I cried for the mother I'd tried to be and apparently failed at. I cried for the grandmother I'd never get to become. I cried for the money I'd handed over like a fool, hoping to buy love. When Linda showed up that evening, I must have called her, though I didn't remember doing it. She found me still in Noah's room, surrounded by toys that would never be played with, books that would never be read. "Oh, honey," she said, and sat down beside me on the floor. I told her everything Vanessa had said, every accusation, every cut. "That woman is cruel," Linda said firmly. "Whether or not Ryan has issues with his childhood, and every adult has issues with their childhood, what she did was deliberately hurt you. She wanted you to feel worthless." What if she's right? What if I was a terrible mother and I've been lying to myself all these years? Were you perfect? No. Is anyone? Also no. Did you do your best in impossible circumstances? Yes. Evelyn, you raised a son alone after your husband died. You worked yourself to exhaustion to give him a good life. You showed up. You loved him. That's not neglect. Then why did he cut me out? I don't know. Maybe he does have unresolved issues. Maybe Vanessa has poisoned him against you. Maybe he's just selfish and found it easier to shut you out than deal with whatever complicated feelings he has. But none of that makes you a bad mother. I wanted to believe her, but doubt had taken root, and it was growing. Over the next few weeks, I became obsessed. I went through old photos, old journals, trying to find evidence of my failures. I made lists of every time I'd disappointed Ryan, every promise I might have broken, every moment I'd chosen work or exhaustion over attention. I tortured myself with memories, reframing every interaction through the lens of abandonment. Dr. Morrison finally stopped me. "This isn't healthy. You're trying to prosecute yourself based on accusations from a woman who has every reason to want you to feel guilty. A woman who just took $25,000 from you and is justifying keeping your grandson away. Evelyn, you're letting her win." What if it's not about winning? What if she's just telling me the truth no one else would? Then your son needs to be the one to tell you that, in a direct conversation, as an adult, not through his wife in a moment of cruelty. And even if Ryan does have legitimate grievances about his childhood, that doesn't justify 3 years of silence or using your grandson as leverage to get money. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were galaxies apart. I stopped trying to contact Ryan, stopped sending cards or gifts. If he wanted to be in my life, he knew where I was. I wasn't going to chase someone who clearly didn't want to be caught. The loneliness after that decision was crushing. Worse than before, somehow, because now I knew exactly what I was missing. I'd held Noah, played with him, heard his laugh. I'd had a glimpse of what being his grandmother could be, and now it was gone. Maybe forever. I threw myself into distractions. More painting, more volunteering. I took a trip to Seattle, stayed in a nice hotel, visited museums. I tried to build a life that didn't have a grandson-shaped hole in it. It didn't work. 3 months after Vanessa slammed the door in my face, my phone rang. Ryan's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail, let him wonder if I even cared anymore. But old habits die hard. And the part of me that was still his mother, still hoping, still hurting, answered on the third ring. "Mom." His voice was strange, tight. "We need to talk. Can you come over for dinner this Saturday? There's something important we need to discuss." Every instinct I had screamed not to go. Linda told me I was insane for even considering it. Dr. Morrison suggested we do an emergency session before I made any decisions. But I'd already made the decision the moment I answered the phone. Some part of me would always answer when Ryan called, no matter how many times he hurt me. "What time?" I asked. 6. And Mom, come ready to really talk, no more avoiding the hard stuff. He hung up before I could respond. I spent the days leading up to Saturday in a state of anxious preparation. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep properly. I kept imagining different scenarios. Maybe Ryan had finally realized how badly he'd treated me and wanted to apologize. Maybe Vanessa had left him and he needed support. Maybe Noah had asked about me and they'd decided to actually follow through on their promises this time. Or maybe they needed more money. I was betting on that last one. Linda came over Friday night and helped me go through my finances with a lawyer she knew. We set up protections, made sure my accounts couldn't be easily accessed, prepared documentation of the previous loan that had never been repaid. I felt like I was preparing for battle, not dinner with my family. "Whatever they ask for," Linda said firmly, "the answer is no. You hear me? No matter what manipulation they try, no matter what promises they make about Noah, the answer is no." "I hear you. Do you? Because I've watched you cave every single time where that boy is concerned. They're going to play you, Evelyn. They're going to use Noah like a weapon, and you need to be ready for that. I know what they're doing, I said quietly. I'm not stupid. I never said you were stupid, but you're vulnerable where your grandson is concerned, and they know it. They're counting on it. She was right, of course. But knowing you're being manipulated and being able to resist it are two different things entirely. Saturday arrived too quickly. I changed clothes 4 times, trying to find something that said, I'm still your mother, but also I'm not a doormat. I settled on slacks and a nice blouse. Nothing too formal, but not casual either. I wanted them to see me as a person with dignity, not just a checkbook they could withdraw from. The drive to their house felt longer than it actually was. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. When I pulled into their driveway, I sat in the car for a full 5 minutes, trying to steady my breathing. You don't have to do this, I told myself. You could turn around right now and go home. You could text that you're not feeling well. You could save yourself whatever's about to happen in there. But I didn't turn around. I got out of the car and walked to the front door, and this time when I knocked, it opened immediately. Ryan stood there, and he looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed like he hadn't slept in days. Behind him, the house was immaculate, almost aggressively clean, like they'd spent hours preparing for this. Mom, thanks for coming. He hugged me briefly, and I felt how thin he'd gotten. Come in, Vanessa's just finishing up dinner. The smell of roasting chicken filled the house. Classical music played softly from speakers I couldn't see. It all felt staged, theatrical, like they were putting on a show. Noah ran into the hallway and stopped when he saw me. For a moment I thought he might not remember me. It had been 3 months, an eternity in a child's life. But then his face lit up. Grandma Evelyn! He crashed into my legs, hugging me tight, and every resolution I'd made about keeping emotional distance crumbled instantly. I picked him up even though he was getting big for it, even though my back protested, and held him close. Hi, sweetheart. I've missed you so much. I missed you too. Daddy said you were sick. Are you better now? I looked at Ryan over Noah's head. He had the grace to look ashamed. I'm much better now, I told Noah, setting him down. Thank you for asking. Vanessa appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She was dressed up too, hair and makeup perfect, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. More new purchases, I noted. Evelyn, welcome. Her smile was warm but didn't reach her eyes. We're so glad you could make it. I hope you're hungry. I made your favorite. At least Ryan said chicken was your favorite. It is. Thank you. We moved to the dining room and I took in more details. New curtains, new dishes, a painting on the wall that had definitely not been there before. Abstract art, the kind that costs thousands of dollars and looks like something a toddler made. The table was set beautifully, almost formally. Wine glasses, cloth napkins, candles. They were trying so hard to impress me, and that effort was more alarming than if they'd been casual. Dinner started with small talk. Ryan asked about my painting classes. Vanessa complimented my blouse. Noah told me about his new dinosaur book, and I listened with genuine interest, soaking up every word. For about 20 minutes, we almost felt like a normal family, having a normal dinner. Then the conversation shifted. So, Mom, Ryan said, setting down his fork, I want to start by apologizing. Really apologizing, not just saying the words. I've handled everything badly. The way we kept you from Noah when he was born, the way I took your money and then disappeared again, the things Vanessa said to you that day. All of it. I was wrong. I waited. There was more coming. I've been doing a lot of therapy, working through some stuff from my childhood, trying to understand why I am the way I am. And I've realized that I've been unfair to you. I blamed you for things that weren't entirely your fault. You were doing your best as a single mom. I can see that now, especially now that I'm a parent myself. Vanessa reached over and squeezed his hand supportively. Noah was coloring at the table, oblivious to the tension. I appreciate that, I said carefully. Can I ask what changed? 3 months ago, Vanessa told me I was a terrible mother who had damaged you beyond repair. Now you're saying you understand I did my best. That's quite a shift. Vanessa had the decency to flush slightly. I was angry that day. You'd shown up unannounced after we asked you not to, and I said things I shouldn't have. I'm sorry for that, but I was also protecting my family. Protecting them from what? From me wanting to see my grandson? From the possibility of Noah getting hurt, she said smoothly. You have to understand our perspective, Evelyn. You were basically a stranger to us. We didn't know if you'd be reliable, if you'd stick around, if you'd be a stable presence in Noah's life. And given the history between you and Ryan, we had concerns. So you took my money instead. The words hung in the air. Noah looked up from his coloring, sensing the shift in tone. Daddy, can I go play in my room? Sure, buddy, Ryan said, his voice tight. We'll call you when there's dessert. Noah scrambled down and ran off. Once his footsteps faded up the stairs, the pretense of civility cracked. The money was a loan, Ryan said, which we're prepared to pay back, with interest like we promised. That's actually part of why we wanted to talk to you tonight. Here it comes, I thought. We want to make things right, Vanessa said. We want you to be part of Noah's life, really part of it. Regular visits, holidays, the whole thing. We want him to have his grandmother. But, I said, because there was always a but. But we need help, Ryan admitted. Bigger help than before. We're in real trouble, Mom. I made some investments that didn't pan out. We're underwater on the house. We owe money to people who aren't patient. If we don't come up with a significant amount soon, we could lose everything. How much? Ryan and Vanessa exchanged a look. She nodded slightly, giving him permission to continue. $250,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $250,000, 10 times what they'd already taken from me. That's not a loan, I said slowly. That's $250,000. Which we would pay back, Ryan said quickly. I've got deals in the pipeline, Mom. Real estate investments that are going to pay off huge. This is just a temporary cash flow problem. In a year, maybe 2, we'd pay back every penny with substantial interest. And if you don't? If these deals fall through like the last ones apparently did? They won't, Vanessa said firmly. Ryan's been working with much more reputable partners this time. These are solid investments. Then get a loan from a bank, from those reputable partners. Why come to me? Because the banks won't touch us with our current debt-to-income ratio, Ryan admitted, and the partners want to see our own capital invested before they'll fully commit. This is what we need to turn things around. This is how we save our family. I looked at both of them. My son, who I'd raised alone, who I'd sacrificed for, who I'd loved with everything I had, and his wife who looked at me like I was a resource to be managed. I thought about Noah upstairs, innocent and sweet, being used as leverage whether he knew it or not. No, I said. The words seemed to surprise all three of us. Mom, you didn't let me finish explaining. No, I repeated. I'm not giving you $250,000. I'm not giving you another penny. Vanessa's face hardened. So you'd rather see your grandson homeless? You're not going to be homeless. You'll downsize, file for bankruptcy if you need to, figure it out like millions of other people in financial trouble do. What you're not going to do is use my money to maintain a lifestyle you can't afford while keeping me at arm's length. We just told you, Ryan said, his voice rising, that we want you in Noah's life. Regular visits, real relationship, but we can't do that if we're in financial crisis, don't you see? Helping us is helping Noah. It's helping all of us be a family again. A family I have to buy my way into? That's not a family, Ryan. That's extortion. That's not fair, Vanessa said coldly. We're offering you exactly what you've been begging for. Time with Noah. Access to your grandson. And all we're asking in return is help when we need it. Isn't that what families do? Families don't cut each other off for 3 years and only call when they need money. Families don't lie about loans being loans when they're really gifts you never intend to repay. Families don't use children as bargaining chips. Ryan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You know what? Fine. You want to be bitter and suspicious. That's your choice. But don't act like you're the victim here. You weren't there for me growing up. You chose work over me every single time. And now when I actually need you, when your grandson needs you, you're choosing money over us. You're doing exactly what you always did. The accusation stung because I'd been afraid it was true. For months I'd tortured myself with the possibility that I'd failed Ryan, that Vanessa was right about me being a bad mother. But looking at him now, manipulative, desperate, willing to use his own child to get what he wanted, I felt something shift inside me. I chose work because we needed to survive, I said quietly. I chose work because your father was dead and bills needed to be paid and food needed to be on the table. Was I perfect? No. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely. But I showed up, Ryan. Every day I showed up. And when you needed help with college, I helped. When you wanted to buy this house, I helped. When you asked for $25,000, I gave it to you without hesitation. So don't you dare tell me I was never there for you. You gave us that money 3 months ago, and we haven't heard from you since, Vanessa interjected. You abandoned us the moment we didn't give you exactly what you wanted. I stopped calling after you slammed a door in my face and told me I was a terrible mother who had damaged my son beyond repair. I stopped calling because you made it crystal clear I wasn't welcome. And you know what the really sad thing is? I would have kept trying anyway, would have kept begging for scraps if I hadn't finally realized what was happening. You don't want a relationship with me, you want a bank account with a heartbeat. That's bullshit, Ryan said. You're twisting everything to make yourself the victim. We're in trouble, Mom. Real trouble. And you have millions of dollars sitting in an account doing nothing. You could solve this problem with a fraction of what you have. Why won't you help us? Because it won't stop, I said. Today, it's $250,000. Next year, it'll be more. And the year after that, more again. You'll keep coming back, keep demanding, keep using Noah as the reason I should bankrupt myself for you. And I'll never actually get to be his grandmother. I'll just be the person who funds your lifestyle. Vanessa laughed, sharp and bitter. You're being dramatic. We're asking for help, not asking you to fund our lifestyle. I saw the new TV, the new furniture, the expensive art on your walls. You're not in financial crisis, Vanessa. You're living beyond your means and expecting me to make up the difference. Those were gifts, she said quickly, from my parents. Really? Because your mother drives a 10-year-old Honda and your father is retired on a fixed income. Where exactly did they get the money for gifts like those? Her mouth opened and closed. She had no answer. You used the money I gave you for the mortgage to buy things, I continued. You lied about what you needed it for, and now you're back for more, with a bigger lie and bigger demands. Ryan's face had gone pale. Get out. Ryan, get out of my house. If you're not going to help us, if you're going to sit there and judge us and accuse us of lying, then leave. We don't need you. You need me enough to invite me to dinner and try to manipulate me into giving you $250,000. Get out! His shout echoed through the house. Upstairs, I heard Noah start to cry. I stood up slowly with as much dignity as I could manage. I love you, Ryan. I always have. And I love Noah more than you can possibly understand, but I won't be used anymore. When you're ready to have an actual relationship with me, not one where my value is determined by my bank account, you know where to find me. Don't hold your breath, Vanessa said acidly. We'll figure this out on our own, and don't expect to see Noah again. You made your choice. I walked toward the door, then stopped. Can I say goodbye to him? No, Ryan said flatly. You've upset him enough. Just go. I could hear Noah crying upstairs, calling for his daddy. Every maternal instinct I had screamed at me to go to him, to comfort him, to explain that none of this was his fault. But I couldn't. I didn't have that right. I left without another word. The drive home was a blur. I kept expecting to feel something, anger, sadness, regret. Instead, I felt numb. Completely, utterly numb. When I walked into my house, the silence was overwhelming. I went to Noah's room and stood in the doorway, looking at all the toys and books and carefully prepared love that would never be used. Then I closed the door and didn't open it again. Linda came over that night without being called. She took one look at me and pulled me into a hug. What did they ask for? $250,000. Jesus Christ. I said no. She pulled back to look at me. You said no. I said no, and Ryan threw me out, told me I'd never see Noah again. Good, she said fiercely. I mean, not good that you can't see Noah. That's awful, but good that you finally stood up for yourself. It doesn't feel good. It feels like I just lost my family all over again. You lost people who were using you. That's not the same as losing family, but it felt the same. It felt exactly the same. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in bed and replayed every moment of the evening, looking for where I could have done something differently. Should I have agreed to a smaller amount? Should I have negotiated, tried to find some middle ground? Should I have just written the check and hoped that this time, finally, it would be enough? No. The answer was no. I knew that intellectually, but emotionally I was still that mother who wanted to fix things for her child, who wanted to protect him from consequences, who wanted to believe that enough love and enough money could solve any problem. Dr. Morrison was proud of me when I told her what happened at our next session. You set a boundary, a hard one. That takes enormous strength. It doesn't feel like strength. It feels like I've failed him all over again. You haven't failed anyone. You finally recognize that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Ryan is an adult making adult choices. Those choices have consequences. Protecting him from those consequences doesn't help him. It just enables the behavior to continue. What about Noah? What are the consequences for him? That's the hardest part, she admitted. Noah is innocent in all this. But you staying in an abusive dynamic with Ryan and Vanessa wouldn't actually help Noah in the long run. It would teach him that manipulation works, that money equals love, that people are transactional. Is that what you want him to learn? Of course it wasn't. But knowing that didn't make it hurt less. Days passed, then weeks. My phone never rang with Ryan's name. No texts, no emails, no attempts at reconciliation. They'd meant what they said. I'd made my choice, and the consequence was losing Noah. I tried to move on, tried to rebuild the life I'd been building before that disastrous dinner. But something had broken that couldn't be fixed with painting classes or book clubs or travel. I'd had my grandson in my arms. I'd heard his laugh, felt his hug, seen his face light up when he saw me. You can't unknow something like that. You can't unfeel it. Linda suggested I talk to a lawyer about grandparents' rights. In our state, there were provisions for grandparents to petition for visitation under certain circumstances. But the lawyer I consulted was pessimistic. These cases are difficult and expensive. The courts generally side with parental rights unless you can prove that denying access is actively harming the child. And 3 years of no contact, followed by brief contact, followed by no contact again, that's not a strong case. So I have no rights? My son can just decide I don't exist and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry. Unless there's evidence of abuse or neglect, or unless you can demonstrate an existing relationship that's being severed, the courts are unlikely to intervene. One more door closed. One more avenue blocked. I was sitting in Noah's room one afternoon. I'd started going in there again, letting myself feel the grief instead of hiding from it, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Evelyn Mercer? A woman's voice, professional. Yes. This is Caroline Foster from St. Catherine's Hospital. I'm calling about your son, Ryan Mercer. He's been admitted to the emergency room. My heart stopped. What happened? Is he okay? He's stable now, but he was in a car accident. Nothing life-threatening, but he's banged up pretty badly. He listed you as his emergency contact. He listed me as his emergency contact. After everything, after throwing me out and telling me we were done, I was still the person he wanted called in an emergency. I'm on my way, I said. I grabbed my keys and ran. The drive to the hospital took 20 minutes but felt like hours. My mind raced through possibilities. How bad was banged up pretty badly? Where was Vanessa? Where was Noah? Had they been in the car too? I rushed into the emergency room and gave Ryan's name at the desk. The nurse directed me to a room in the back. When I pushed through the curtain, Ryan was lying on a hospital bed, his face bruised and swollen, his arm in a sling. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked. "You came." "Of course I came. What happened?" "Car accident. Some idiot ran a red light, T-boned me on the driver's side. They said I'm lucky to be alive." I sat down in the chair next to his bed, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. "Vanessa? Noah?" "They weren't with me. They're fine. Vanessa's on her way now. I was alone coming back from a meeting." "A meeting?" "Probably one of those investment meetings that were supposed to save them financially. The irony wasn't lost on me." We sat in silence for a moment. I wanted to hug him but wasn't sure I was allowed. Wanted to tell him I loved him but didn't know if he wanted to hear it. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "For everything. You were right about all of it. The money, the manipulation, using Noah. You were right, and I was too proud and too desperate to admit it." "Ryan, No, let me say this. I need to say this. I've been lying to myself for a long time, blaming you for things that weren't your fault because it was easier than taking responsibility for my own failures. Telling myself that you owed me, that you owed us, because of some imagined debt from my childhood. But you don't owe me anything, Mom. You never did. And I'm sorry it took me literally almost dying to figure that out. Tears were running down my face. I love you. No matter what, I love you. I know you do. I've always known. I didn't know how to accept it, how to believe that I deserved it. The curtain pushed open and Vanessa rushed in, her face pale. She stopped when she saw me. What is she doing here? I called her, Ryan said. She's my emergency contact. I'm your wife. I should have been called first. You were called. You didn't answer. Mom did. Vanessa's expression flickered between anger and something else. Maybe fear, maybe realization that her control over the situation was slipping. Can we have some privacy? She asked coldly. No, Ryan said. Mom stays. It was such a small thing, those two words, but they felt massive. They felt like the first real choice he'd made in years that wasn't about money or manipulation or what Vanessa wanted. Vanessa's face flushed. Fine. We'll talk about this later. I need to check on Noah anyway. She turned and left without saying goodbye to either of us. She's going to be furious, Ryan said tiredly. Probably. I need to leave her. He said it so quietly I almost didn't hear. I know that now. This whole thing, this whole mess we're in, it's because of decisions she pushed me into, investments she insisted would work, a lifestyle she demanded we maintain even when we couldn't afford it. I went along with it because I was weak, because it was easier than standing up to her, but I can't do it anymore. That's a big decision. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. But Mom, I need your help, not money, he added quickly. I meant what I said. You don't owe me that. But I need someone on my side. I need my mother. I reached over and took his hand, carefully avoiding the IV. You have me. You've always had me. I'm not going anywhere. He squeezed my hand and closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was actually his mother again. Not a bank account, not a source of guilt, just his mother, sitting beside him when he needed me, which was all I'd ever wanted to be. I stayed with Ryan until they moved him to a regular room for overnight observation. The doctors wanted to monitor him for a possible concussion, and he was in too much pain to argue. I sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair watching him drift in and out of sleep, thinking about how many times I'd imagined being needed by him again, and how I'd never imagined it would be like this. Around 9 p.m., Vanessa returned. She had Noah with her, and he was already in his pajamas, half asleep against her shoulder. Daddy! Noah perked up when he saw Ryan, struggling to get down. Careful, buddy, I said, standing to help guide him to the bed. Daddy's got some ouchies right now. Noah climbed up gently, and Ryan wrapped his good arm around him. Hey, little man, I'm okay. Just a little banged up. You were in an accident? Noah's eyes were wide. Like in cartoons? Sort of, but not as dramatic. No explosions or anything. That's good. Explosions are scary. Noah snuggled against Ryan's side, and I saw my son's face transform with love for his child. Whatever else was broken in Ryan, that part worked perfectly. Vanessa stood stiffly by the door, watching me. You can go now. We've got it from here. Actually, Ryan said, his voice stronger than it had been, I'd like Mom to stay. We need to talk. All of us. Ryan, you need rest. This can wait. No, it can't. It's waited too long already. He looked at Noah. Hey, buddy, can you go with Grandma Evelyn to the cafeteria and get some ice cream? I need to talk to Mommy about grown-up stuff. Noah's face lit up at the mention of ice cream. Can I get chocolate? You can get whatever you want, I said, offering my hand. He took it without hesitation, and we left the room together. As we walked down the hallway, I could hear raised voices starting behind us. The cafeteria was mostly empty at this hour. I bought Noah a chocolate ice cream cup and a coffee for myself, and we sat at a table by the window overlooking the parking lot. Grandma Evelyn, Noah said between bites, why are Mommy and Daddy always mad? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean, sweetie? They yell a lot. About money. Daddy says we don't have enough, and Mommy says we need more, and they get really loud. He scooped another spoonful of ice cream. Are we poor? My heart broke for him. No, honey, you're not poor. Your parents are just figuring some things out. Jimmy at school said his parents yell about money and then they got divorced. Are my parents getting divorced? I didn't know what to say. I couldn't lie to him, but I also couldn't tell him the truth, that his father had just told me he planned to leave his mother, that their family as he knew it was probably about to implode. I don't know what's going to happen, I said honestly, but I do know that both your parents love you very much. No matter what happens, that won't change. Do you love me? He asked, looking up at me with those serious eyes. More than you can imagine. Then why don't I see you more? Mommy said you don't want to see me. The words hit like a physical blow. That's not true, Noah. That's not true at all. I've wanted to see you every single day since you were born. Your mommy and daddy and I just had some disagreements about when and how. About money? Sort of. About a lot of things, but never ever because I didn't want to see you. He seemed to consider this while finishing his ice cream. I like you, Grandma Evelyn. You're nice, and you have the train set. I do have the train set, and you're welcome to play with it any time. Really? Can we go to your house tomorrow? I don't know about tomorrow, sweetie, but soon, I hope. When we returned to the room 20 minutes later, the atmosphere had changed. Vanessa was crying, angry tears, the kind that come from losing an argument you thought you'd win. Ryan looked exhausted but determined. Noah, come here, Vanessa said, her voice tight. We're going home. But I want to stay with Daddy. Daddy needs to rest. Say goodnight. Noah hugged Ryan carefully, then turned to me. Bye, Grandma Sabi. Grandma. Goodbye, sweetheart. I hugged him tight, not knowing when I'd see him again. After they left, Ryan and I sat in silence for a while. Finally, he spoke. I told her I want a divorce and that I want shared custody of Noah, with you being allowed unlimited access when he's with me. What did she say? That I'm making the biggest mistake of my life, that I'm choosing you over her, that she'll take me for everything in the divorce and I'll never see Noah again. He laughed bitterly. Not much to take given how deep in debt we are, but she'll try. Ryan, are you sure about this? Divorce is... I'm sure. I should have done it years ago, before Noah was even born. But I was scared. Scared of being alone, scared of failing, scared of admitting I'd made a mistake. And Vanessa knew exactly how to use that fear against me. He shifted in the bed, wincing. She's the one who convinced me to cut you out, you know, after Noah was born. She said you'd try to take over, that you'd undermine her as a mother, that we needed to establish our family unit without interference. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her, because it gave me an excuse to avoid dealing with my own issues. It was easier to blame you for my childhood than to accept that maybe things just were what they were, that you did your best in impossible circumstances and I turned out okay anyway. Did you, though, turn out okay? He considered this. I'm working on it. The therapy is helping, slowly, but I can see now how much of my adult life has been about avoiding responsibility for my own choices. Blaming you. Letting Vanessa make all the decisions so I didn't have to. Asking you for money instead of fixing my actual problems. What are you going to do? About the debt, the house, all of it? File for bankruptcy, probably. Sell the house. Move into something I can actually afford. Start over. It's going to suck, Mom. It's going to be humiliating, but it's what I should have done months ago instead of trying to squeeze money out of you. If you need help, no. No, he said it firmly. No more money. That's part of the problem. I need to fix this myself. Learn to live within my means. Figure out who I am without expensive things filling the holes. He paused. But I do need your help with Noah. When this divorce gets ugly, and it will get ugly, he's going to need you. He's going to need stability and someone who actually loves him for him, not as a bargaining chip. I'm here. Whatever you need. Whatever he needs. We talked for hours after that. Really talked. Maybe for the first time in years. He told me about the investments that had gone wrong, the pressure from Vanessa to maintain appearances, the constant anxiety about money that had consumed their marriage. I told him about the last 3 years, about the nursery I'd built that never got used, about the birthdays and holidays I'd spent alone wondering about my grandson. I'm sorry, he said at one point, for all of it, for wasting so many years, for the things Vanessa said to you, for using Noah. I'm sorry. I know you are. Do you forgive me? I thought about that. Did I? Could I? I'm working on it, I said honestly. I love you. I never stopped loving you, but forgiveness is going to take time. That's fair. That's more than fair. A nurse came in to check his vitals and give him pain medication. I stayed until he fell asleep, then drove home as dawn was breaking. I was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, but also something else. Something that felt almost like hope. The next few weeks were chaos. Ryan moved out of the house and into a small apartment. Vanessa immediately filed for divorce and demanded full custody, claiming Ryan was unstable and I was a bad influence. The legal bills started piling up. Ryan's lawyer recommended he get character witnesses, people who could testify to his fitness as a parent, and my positive influence as a grandmother. Linda volunteered immediately. So did Dr. Morrison. Even Carol Henderson from the coffee shop, who barely knew me, offered to testify about how I'd reacted when I found out about Noah's birth. Hurt, but never vindictive. Desperate to be involved, but always respectful. Vanessa's lawyer tried to make the $25,000 loan into evidence that I was trying to buy access to Noah. Ryan's lawyer countered with bank records showing that Ryan and Vanessa had spent the money on luxury items, not the mortgage they'd claimed. It was ugly, messier than I could have imagined. But through it all, I got to see Noah. Ryan had him every other weekend and Wednesday nights, and I was there for all of it. We played with the train set. I read him books, we baked cookies, and went to the park, and did all the normal grandmother things I'd been dreaming about for years. Vanessa hated it. She called constantly when Noah was with us, making excuses why he needed to come back early. She badmouthed me to Noah, telling him I was trying to steal him away from her. She fought every custody arrangement, every visitation schedule, every small victory Ryan won in court. But Noah was smart. He could see the difference between people who loved him for himself and people who loved him as a possession. And slowly, carefully, he started to relax around me, started to trust that I wasn't going anywhere. Then 6 weeks into this new arrangement, Vanessa's lawyer made a surprising offer. They'd agree to 50-50 custody with reasonable grandmother visitation rights, but only if Ryan agreed to sign over his share of the house equity to Vanessa and pay alimony for 3 years. Ryan's lawyer said it was a terrible deal financially, but Ryan, to his credit, barely hesitated. "Take it," he said. "I don't care about the house or the money. I care about Noah. If this means I get equal time with my son and my mother gets to actually be his grandmother, it's worth it." The divorce was finalized 3 months after Ryan's accident. He came out of it broke, living in a tiny apartment, driving a used car, but he had Noah half the time and full freedom to include me in his son's life. The first weekend after the divorce was final, Ryan invited me over for dinner. Nothing fancy. Spaghetti from a jar, bagged salad, garlic bread from the freezer. We ate on his secondhand furniture while Noah colored at the coffee table, and it was perfect. "I have something to tell you," Ryan said after Noah went to bed. My stomach clenched. "What?" "Vanessa contacted me yesterday. She's getting remarried. Some guy she started dating about 5 minutes after I moved out. Apparently he's loaded, owns a chain of car dealerships or something. How do you feel about that?" "Relieved, honestly. Maybe now she'll stop using Noah to punish me. Maybe she'll be distracted enough by her new rich husband that she'll loosen up on the custody fights." He paused. "But there's more. She's planning to move. Nothing out of state, still within the custody agreement limits, but farther. To some expensive suburb with better schools, which means Noah's whole life is about to change again." "How does Noah feel about it?" "Confused, scared. He likes his school, his friends. And now this stranger is going to be living with him half the time, and everything familiar is going away. He has you, and he has me. That's not changing." "I know, but Mom, I need to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it before you answer." "Okay. Would you consider moving closer to us, to wherever Vanessa ends up? There's nothing tying you to your current house. And if you were nearby, Noah could see you more often. It would give him more stability, more family around him during this transition." I hadn't expected this. Hadn't considered leaving my home, my neighborhood, my life. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. What was I staying for? A house full of memories, half of them painful. Friends I saw occasionally, but who had their own families, their own lives. "I'll think about it," I said. I did more than think about it. I spent the next week touring areas near where Vanessa was moving. Found a nice little townhouse in a quiet community, close enough to both Ryan's apartment and Vanessa's new place that Noah could easily visit. It had a small yard, a spare bedroom that would be perfect for Noah, and a sunroom that would make an ideal art studio. I made an offer. It was accepted. 2 months later, I moved. Leaving my old house was harder than I expected. That was where I'd raised Ryan, where Richard and I had built our life together. But it was also where I'd spent 3 years alone, grieving for relationships that didn't exist, building a nursery for a grandson I thought I'd never meet. Linda helped me pack. We stood in Noah's room on the last day, looking at the empty space where the crib and toys had been. "You did it," she said. "You got through it, and you came out the other side." I almost didn't. There were days I thought the loneliness would kill me. But it didn't. "You're stronger than you thought." Maybe I was. Or maybe I just finally learned that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking and putting yourself back together, even when the pieces don't fit quite the same way they did before. My new place was smaller, but felt more like mine. I set up Noah's room with care, asking him what colors he liked, what toys he wanted. Not trying to impress him or buy his affection, just trying to make a space where he felt welcome and loved. He stayed over for the first time on a Friday night. Ryan dropped him off with his overnight bag and his dinosaur, looking nervous. "You sure you're okay with this? I can pick him up if it's too much." "Ryan, I've been waiting 3 years for this. We'll be fine." And we were. Noah and I made pizza together, letting him put on his own toppings even though he used way too much cheese. We watched a movie. I read him 3 bedtime stories. He negotiated me up from one and tucked him into his new bed. "Grandma?" he said as I was turning off the light. "Yes, sweetie? I'm glad you live close now. I like being here. I like having you here." "Will you always be here? Even if things change again?" The question revealed so much about what he'd been through. So much instability, so many promises broken, so many adults using him as a weapon in their wars. "I will always be here for you," I promised. "Always. No matter what." He seemed satisfied with that and closed his eyes. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching him sleep, this beautiful child who I'd fought so hard to know. The next morning, we made pancakes and went to the park. We played on the swings and fed the ducks and talked about nothing important. Just a grandmother and her grandson having a normal day. When Ryan picked him up that afternoon, Noah hugged me tight. "See you Wednesday?" "See you Wednesday." After they left, I sat in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain. I still hurt when I thought about the years I'd lost, the damage that had been done. But peace anyway. The kind that comes from knowing you've done what you could, set the boundaries you needed to set, and love the people you love without losing yourself in the process. I was finally learning what Dr. Morrison had been trying to teach me all along. That love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. That boundaries aren't punishment. That you can walk away from toxicity while still leaving the door open for genuine reconciliation. And that being a grandmother wasn't about getting it perfect. It was about showing up, being present, and letting this little boy know he was loved unconditionally. Not because of what he could give me or what I could get from him, but just because he existed. A month into my new life, Vanessa showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer when I saw her through the peephole, but curiosity won out. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked into my living room, taking in the modest furniture, the paintings I'd hung, the photos of Noah I'd already accumulated on the mantel. "Nice place," she said stiffly. "Thank you." We stood there awkwardly. Finally, she spoke. "I need to talk to you about something, about Ryan's request." My heart sank. "What request?" "He wants to modify the custody arrangement. He's asking for more time, 60-40 instead of 50-50. And he wants it written into the agreement that you get guaranteed visitation rights, that I can't block you from seeing Noah even during my custody time. What do you think about that?" "Honestly, I think it's bullshit. You're not his parent. You don't get rights." "Then why are you here?" She sat down without being invited. "Because Noah won't shut up about you. Grandma Evelyn this, Grandma Evelyn that. He cried for an hour last night because I told him he couldn't call you before bed, and my therapist, yes, I'm in therapy now, says I need to accept that you're part of his life, whether I like it or not." "You don't have to like me, Vanessa. But you do have to stop using Noah to punish Ryan and me. I'm not. She stopped, took a breath. Okay, maybe I am, maybe I have been, but you need to understand something. I loved Ryan. I thought we were building this perfect life, and when it all fell apart, when I realized he'd rather be broke and divorced than stay with me, it destroyed me. And you were part of that. You and your money and your constant presence. I wasn't trying to destroy your marriage. I know that now. But at the time, all I could see was that Ryan chose you over me, that his mother mattered more than his wife, and I couldn't handle it. He didn't choose me over you. He chose himself. He chose to stop living a lie. She laughed bitterly. Is that what you tell yourself? That I'm the villain and you're the hero? I don't think anyone's the hero here. I think we're all just people who made mistakes and hurt each other and are trying to figure out how to move forward. She was quiet for a long moment. I'll agree to the modification, to the visitation rights, but I need something from you in return. What? I need you to stay out of the parenting decisions. You get to see Noah, you get to love him, but you don't get to undermine me. When I set rules or make choices you don't agree with, you keep your mouth shut. Can you do that? I thought about it. Could I watch Vanessa parent in ways I didn't agree with and say nothing? Could I step back when every instinct told me to intervene? As long as Noah isn't being harmed, yes. I can respect your role as his mother. Even though you think I'm a terrible mother? I never said that. You didn't have to. It's been clear from the beginning what you think of me. What I think, I said carefully, is that you love Noah in your own way, and that you've made choices I wouldn't have made. But that doesn't make you terrible. It makes you human. She stood abruptly. Fine. I'll tell my lawyer to accept the modification. But Evelyn, if you ever try to turn Noah against me, if you ever make him choose between us, I will make your life a living hell. Understood? I would never do that. He needs his mother. He needs both his parents and his grandmother. I get that now. I don't like it, but I get it. She left without saying goodbye. The new custody arrangement was finalized 2 weeks later. Ryan now had Noah 3 weekends a month and alternating holidays, and I had guaranteed visitation rights, 2 afternoons a week after school, 1 overnight a month during Vanessa's time, and the freedom to attend school events and activities. It was more than I'd dreamed of 3 years ago when I stood outside the hospital, being told I wasn't close family enough to meet my grandson. More than I'd hoped for 6 months ago when Vanessa slammed the door in my face and said I'd never see Noah again. But there was still one more thing I needed to do. One more conversation I needed to have. I called Ryan and asked him to come over without Noah. He showed up that evening, looking nervous. What's wrong? Is everything okay? Everything's fine. Sit down. I need to talk to you about something. He sat on my couch, and I sat across from him in the armchair. For a moment, I just looked at him. This man who used to be my little boy, who I'd hurt and who'd hurt me, who we'd both trying so hard to figure out how to love each other better. I've been thinking a lot about what Vanessa said, about you being in therapy because of me, about your childhood. Mom, she was trying to hurt you. She picked the things she knew would cut deepest. But is it true? Do you really feel like I neglected you? Like I chose work over you? He sighed. It's complicated. Yes, there were times I felt neglected. Times I wished you were home more. Wished you could come to every game and every event. But I also knew why you were working. I knew we needed the money, and I knew you were doing your best. So which is it? Were you neglected, or did I do my best? Both. That's what I've been learning in therapy. 2 things can be true at the same time. You did your best, and I still felt hurt sometimes. That doesn't make you a bad mother, and it doesn't make my feelings invalid. It just is. I'm sorry, I said. For the times I wasn't there, for the times you needed me and I was too tired or too stressed to really see you, for pushing you so hard toward success that maybe I didn't let you just be a kid. I'm sorry too, for blaming you for things that weren't your fault, for letting Vanessa manipulate me into cutting you off, for using money as a weapon and Noah as leverage. I'm sorry for all of it. We sat in silence for a while. Then Ryan spoke again. Can I ask you something? That money you won, the lottery money. Do you still have it? My guard went up immediately. Why? Not for me, he said quickly. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just curious. You said you were going to invest it, secure your retirement. Did you do that? Most of it's in investments, some in savings, some I used to buy this place outright so I'd never have to worry about a mortgage. Good. That's good. You deserve security. You deserve to know you're taken care of. There's something else I did with it, I said. Something I want to tell you about. I went to my desk and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents I'd had prepared a month ago but hadn't shown anyone yet. I handed them to Ryan. He read through them, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. You set up a trust fund for Noah? For his education? $100,000? It can only be used for college or trade school or whatever path he chooses after high school. Neither you nor Vanessa can touch it. It's his. Mom, this is too much. It's exactly enough. It's me making sure my grandson has opportunities, but doing it in a way that can't be manipulated or misused. It's love with boundaries. The kind I should have established from the beginning. Ryan's eyes were wet. Thank you. Not just for the money, but for figuring this out, for teaching me how to do it better. We're both still learning, but we're learning together now. That's what matters. He left an hour later, and I sat in my quiet house feeling something close to contentment. Not happiness. Too much had happened for simple happiness. But something deeper. Something earned. I'd lost 3 years with my grandson. I'd been betrayed by my son and manipulated by his wife. I'd handed over money I'd never get back, hoping to buy something that couldn't be bought. I'd been told I was a terrible mother, that I'd damaged my child beyond repair, that I was toxic and unwanted, and I'd survived all of it. More than survived. I'd learned from it. I'd set boundaries. I should have set years ago. I'd stopped begging for love from people who weren't capable of giving it freely. I'd protected myself while keeping my heart open to the possibility of redemption. Not everyone gets that chance. Not every estrangement ends with reconciliation, even partial reconciliation. I was one of the lucky ones. But there was still one final piece of the puzzle, one last thing that needed to happen before I could truly move forward. And it was going to happen in 2 days, at a dinner I'd agreed to attend at Ryan's request. A dinner where Vanessa would be present, where we'd all sit down together as a family and try to figure out how to coexist for Noah's sake. I had no idea if it would work, no idea if we could really move past everything that had happened. But I was willing to try, for Noah. And I was finally learning for myself too. The dinner was supposed to be at Ryan's apartment, but the day before he called with a change of plans. Vanessa wants to host it at her new place. She says it's more neutral ground, and honestly, I think she wants to show off the house. Her fiancé will be there too. Her fiancé? Ryan, I don't think... I know, but she's insisting, and I don't want to start another fight. Plus, Noah will be more comfortable in his own space. Will you still come? I didn't want to. Every instinct told me this was a setup, another opportunity for Vanessa to assert dominance or manufacture some new drama. But I'd promised myself I'd try, so I said yes. The house was in one of those neighborhoods where every lawn looks professionally maintained and every house costs more than most people make in a lifetime. Vanessa's new place was a sprawling colonial with a circular driveway and landscaping that probably required a full-time gardener. I parked my modest sedan next to a Mercedes and a BMW and felt immediately out of place. Ryan answered the door. Hey, Mom. Deep breaths, okay? We're just going to get through this. You look nervous. I am nervous. I haven't met this guy yet either. Vanessa wanted to do the whole introduction thing tonight with everyone together. Some kind of weird blended family moment. We walked into a foyer that could have fit my entire living room. Everything was expensive and pristine and cold. There was no sign that a 3-year-old lived here. No toys scattered around, no colorful drawings on the fridge, nothing that suggested warmth or actual life. Vanessa appeared from what I assumed was the kitchen, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment used to be. Behind her was a man in his 50s, tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of tan that comes from country clubs and vacation homes. Evelyn, thank you for coming. Vanessa's smile was practiced. This is Brad Harrison, my fiancé. Brad, this is Ryan's mother. Brad shook my hand with the firm grip of someone who's closed a lot of business deals. Nice to meet you. Heard a lot about you. I just bet he had. Where's Noah? I asked. Playing upstairs. We thought the adults should talk first before we eat. Vanessa gestured to the formal living room. Please, have a seat. This was it. This was the ambush I'd been expecting. We sat, Ryan and I on one couch, Vanessa and Brad on another. The arrangement felt like battle lines being drawn. "So," Vanessa began, her voice taking on that artificial brightness I'd come to recognize as her manipulation tone. "Brad and I wanted everyone together because we have some news. We're getting married next month, and we've decided that it would be best for Noah's stability if we all came to an understanding about expectations going forward." "What kind of expectations?" Ryan asked warily. Brad leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Look, I'm going to be a father figure in Noah's life. That's just reality. And I think it's important that we establish some boundaries so the kid doesn't get confused about who's in charge." "You're not his father," Ryan said flatly. "I am. I'm aware. But I'll be living with him, making day-to-day decisions, providing for him financially. Vanessa and I feel it's important that Noah understands the hierarchy. Hierarchy. Like a child was a corporate structure to be managed." "What does this have to do with me?" I asked. Vanessa turned to me. "We need to discuss your role. Brad and I have talked about it extensively, and we think it would be best if we limit your time with Noah during our custody periods. We have a legal agreement. You can't just—" "We can modify agreements," Brad interrupted smoothly, "especially when circumstances change, and they have changed. Noah is about to have a stable, two-parent household with substantial financial resources. He'll be attending a prestigious private school. We're planning to travel extensively, Europe this summer, skiing in Aspen over Christmas. Noah's life is going to look very different going forward." "And you don't think I fit into that life?" I said quietly. "It's not personal," Vanessa said, though the look in her eyes suggested it was extremely personal. "It's about what's best for Noah. And what's best is consistency. Too many adults in his life, too many different parenting styles. It's confusing. Brad and I will parent during our time. Ryan can parent during his time. But the grandmother visits, the after-school pickups, the sleepovers, they're not necessary anymore." I looked at Ryan. His face had gone pale, his jaw clenched. "This is what tonight was really about," he said. "Not some family dinner. Another power play." "It's not a power play, it's a conversation," Brad said. "One I think we're all mature enough to have. Vanessa has told me about the financial arrangements in the past, and I want to be clear, we don't need anything from Evelyn. I'm more than capable of providing for my family, so there's no reason for ongoing involvement beyond basic courtesy." "Noah loves his grandmother," Ryan said, his voice rising. "You can't just cut her out because you've decided she's not upscale enough for your lifestyle." "Ryan, don't be dramatic," Vanessa said. "We're not cutting anyone out. We're just suggesting a reduction in contact, maybe once a month instead of twice a week. Holidays can be negotiated year by year." "Once a month." I repeated the words, trying to process what was happening. "You want to reduce my time with my grandson to once a month." "It's reasonable," Brad said. "Most grandparents don't see their grandchildren weekly anyway. This is actually quite generous." Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was hearing my love for Noah described as generous when reduced to once a month. Maybe it was the smug certainty on Brad's face, or the calculating coldness in Vanessa's eyes. Maybe it was just that I was done. Done being manipulated, done being treated like a problem to be managed, done watching people use a child I loved as a bargaining chip. "No," I said. Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me?" I said no. "We have a legal agreement, one your lawyer negotiated and signed. If you want to modify it, you can take me to court, but I'm not agreeing to anything tonight." "Mrs. Mercer," Brad's voice took on a harder edge, "I don't think you understand the situation. Vanessa and I are prepared to provide Noah with opportunities you could never give him. Private education, travel, connections that will set him up for life. But that requires a certain environment, a certain level of consistency and appropriate influence." "Appropriate influence." I stood up. "Let me tell you something about appropriate influence, Brad. Appropriate influence is showing up. It's being there when a child needs you, not just when it's convenient or when it makes you look good. It's loving someone without conditions, without contracts, without using them as leverage in adult games." "Mom, maybe we should—" Ryan started, but I wasn't finished. "I have spent 3 years being told I'm not good enough for this family. Not close enough family to meet my grandson when he was born. Not important enough to be included in his life. Not worth a phone call or a photo or a single acknowledgement of my existence except when someone needed money. And I took it. I accepted it because I was so desperate to be part of Noah's life that I would have accepted anything. My voice was shaking, but I kept going. I gave you $25,000 because I thought it would buy me access to my grandson. And you know what I learned? Love isn't something you can buy. Family isn't something you can purchase. And the moment I stopped trying to pay for a place in this family, I started actually having one. This is getting us nowhere, Vanessa said coldly. Brad, maybe we should just... Where's Noah right now? I asked suddenly. Upstairs. Why? Because we're about to negotiate his life and he's not even here. He's been sent away while the adults decide what happens to him, just like every other time. Do you know what he asked me last week? He asked if his parents were getting divorced because they yell about money. He's 3 years old and he's already learned that love and money and family are all tangled up into something transactional and conditional. How dare you suggest, Vanessa started. I'm not suggesting anything, I'm stating a fact. That child has spent his entire life being used as a tool in adult wars, and I'm done participating in it. So you'll walk away? Brad challenged. Abandon him just like that? I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm standing up for what's right. Ryan has custody 50-40. During his time, Noah is welcome in my home whenever he wants. I will attend every school event, every birthday party, every moment I'm allowed to be part of. And if you try to take that away, I will fight you in court with every resource I have. Your lottery money, Vanessa said with a nasty smile. That's what you'll use to fight us. So it does come down to money after all, doesn't it? No, it comes down to love, something you've never understood. You loved Ryan's potential earning capacity. You love Brad's bank account. You love the lifestyle Noah represents. But do you love any of them as people? As flawed, complicated human beings who need you to just show up and care about them? The room went silent. Even Brad seemed taken aback by the confrontation. Then we heard small footsteps on the stairs. Mommy, why is everyone yelling? Noah stood in the doorway in his pajamas, holding his dinosaur, his face scrunched up with worry. Vanessa's expression transformed instantly into maternal concern. Oh, honey, no one's yelling. We're just having a grown-up conversation. Go back upstairs. I want Grandma Evelyn. He crossed the room and climbed into my lap, burying his face against my shoulder. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling him tremble slightly. It's okay, sweetheart, I murmured. Everything's okay. Are you leaving? Are you going away like Daddy did? The question broke my heart. No, baby, I'm not going anywhere. Vanessa promises, and then things change. Daddy said he'd be here all the time, and then he wasn't. Are you going to change too? I looked up at Ryan, at Vanessa, at Brad. All three of them were staring at this small child who had just articulated the core trauma of his young life. That the adults around him kept disappearing, kept breaking promises, kept changing the rules. Noah, I said carefully, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Sometimes we hurt each other, and we hurt the people we love because we're scared or confused or we don't know how to do better. But I promise you, I will always try to do better, and I will never, ever stop loving you or wanting to be in your life. Even if Mommy says you can't? The silence that followed was deafening. Your mommy loves you very much, I said, choosing my words carefully, and she wants what's best for you. Sometimes grown-ups disagree about what that is, but you don't have to worry about any of that. You just have to be a kid. Noah pulled back to look at me. Can we go to your house? I want to play with the trains. Not tonight, sweetie. Tonight you're here with your mom and meeting Brad. But soon, okay? Promise? I promise. Vanessa stood abruptly. Noah, say goodnight to Grandma Evelyn. It's past your bedtime. But I just... Now, Noah. He hugged me tight one more time, then reluctantly climbed off my lap. Vanessa took his hand and led him from the room without looking back at any of us. Brad cleared his throat. That was unfortunate. The kid obviously has some attachment issues we'll need to work on. He doesn't have attachment issues, Ryan said quietly. He has 3 adults who keep jerking him around depending on what's most convenient for them. And I'm done with it too. He stood, and I realized with a start that my son looked different somehow. Taller, maybe, or just more solid. Like he'd finally decided to take up the space he was entitled to. Brad, I don't know you. Maybe you're a good guy, maybe you're not. But you're not Noah's father, and you never will be. You can be a stepfather if you treat him right. But the hierarchy you're talking about? That's not how this works. I'm his dad. Mom is his grandmother. Vanessa is his mother. Those relationships existed before you showed up, and they'll exist after you're gone if things don't work out. Ryan, Brad started, but Ryan held up his hand. I'm not finished. Vanessa, I know we've had our problems. I know I've made mistakes, including staying with you for way too long because I was scared to be alone. But I'm not scared anymore. And I'm not going to let you manipulate Mom or use Noah to punish me or control the situation just because you're marrying someone rich. You have no right. I have every right. I'm his father. And here's what's going to happen. We're going to stick to the custody agreement we have. Mom's visitation rights stay exactly as they are. If you want to take us to court to change that, go ahead. But I will fight you. And unlike last time, I won't be doing it alone. You can't afford a lawyer, Vanessa said with a nasty laugh. Actually, I can. Because I've been meeting with financial counselors, doing the bankruptcy properly, getting my life together. And Mom's not giving me money. She's being a character witness. She's showing up at court dates. She's proving that Noah has a loving, stable grandmother who deserves to be in his life. And you know what? I think we'll win. Brad stood, putting a hand on Vanessa's shoulder. Perhaps we should all take some time to cool off and revisit this later. Good idea, I said. Ryan, I'm going to head out. As we walked to the door, Vanessa's voice followed us. This isn't over. You're right, I said, turning back. It's not. But it's not what you think either. I'm not fighting you for custody. I'm not trying to take Noah away from you or replace you as his mother. I'm just insisting on my right to love my grandson without conditions or negotiations or monthly allowances. If you can't handle that, that says more about you than it does about me. I left before she could respond. Ryan walked me to my car. The night air was cool, and I could hear crickets chirping somewhere in the expensive landscaping. That was intense, he said. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to blow everything up. Don't apologize. You said what needed to be said, what I should have said years ago. Do you really think they'll take us to court? Maybe. Probably. But like I said, I'll fight them. We'll fight them. He paused. I've been thinking about what you said in the hospital, about forgiveness taking time. I want you to know that I understand. And I'm going to keep working on being someone you can forgive. Someone Noah can be proud of. You already are, I said. You're trying. You're showing up. You're learning. That's all anyone can do. I drove home with tears streaming down my face. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of finally standing up for myself, of refusing to accept less than I deserved. The legal threat never materialized. 2 weeks after that disastrous dinner, Ryan got a call from Vanessa's lawyer. They decided not to pursue a modification of the custody agreement. Brad had apparently convinced Vanessa that a court battle would be expensive, time-consuming, and likely to result in no changes anyway, given that Noah was clearly bonded with me. Ryan thought Brad was probably more concerned about how it would look. Wealthy businessman trying to cut grandmother out of child's life didn't play well in family court. I didn't care what the reason was. I only cared that it was over. Life settled into a new rhythm after that. Noah spent every Wednesday afternoon with me and alternating weekends when Ryan had custody. We established routines, train time when he first arrived, snack at the kitchen table, books before bed when he stayed over. Normal grandmother things that felt extraordinary after everything I'd been through to get them. Vanessa remained distant but civil at school events and birthday parties. Brad tried too hard to be buddies with Noah, buying him expensive gifts and planning elaborate outings that Noah tolerated but didn't seem to particularly enjoy. I got the sense that Brad had assumed being a stepfather would be like managing employees, assert authority, provide resources, receive loyalty, and was baffled when it turned out parenting an actual child was more complicated. Ryan continued therapy and slowly rebuilt his financial life. He moved to a slightly bigger apartment, got promoted at work, started dating someone new, a woman who seemed genuinely kind and had no interest in his mother's money. They took things slow, and I respected that. But the real changes happened in smaller moments. The way Ryan now called me just to talk, not because he needed something. The way Noah ran to me at school pickup without checking first if his mother was watching. The way I could finally sit in that room, Noah's room, without feeling the weight of all those lost years, because new memories were being made that didn't erase the pain but lived alongside it. On Noah's 5th birthday, both families gathered at a park for his party. Ryan and his girlfriend organized games. Vanessa and Brad arrived late in their Mercedes with an elaborate gift that Noah opened politely before returning to play with his friends. I brought the homemade cake I'd stayed up late decorating. Nothing fancy, but made with love. At one point, Noah ran over to me, his face flushed and happy. "Grandma, watch this." He proceeded to do a somersault that was more sideways roll than anything else, but I clapped and cheered like he'd won Olympic gold. "Did you see? Did you see?" He was breathless with excitement. "I saw! That was amazing!" He hugged me quickly, then ran back to his friends. Linda, who I'd invited to the party, leaned over. "Look at you, Grandmother of the Year." "Hardly. I'm just showing up." "That's what makes you Grandmother of the Year. Showing up. Being there. Not being perfect. Just being present." She was right. I wasn't perfect. I still made mistakes. Forgot to pack the right snack, got lost driving to Noah's new school the first time, accidentally let him stay up too late, and had to deal with Vanessa's irritated texts the next day. But I was there, and that mattered more than getting everything right. A month after the birthday party, Ryan called with unexpected news. Vanessa and Brad are splitting up. Apparently the engagement's off. She's keeping the house, but he's moving out. What happened? According to Vanessa, they had irreconcilable differences about lifestyle expectations. According to Brad's social media, yeah, I looked. She was still spending money they didn't have and expecting him to cover it. Sounds familiar, right? How's Noah handling it? Better than you'd think. He barely knew Brad, and honestly, I think he's relieved. One less adult trying to be something in his life. He just wants his mom and his dad and his grandma. Simple. Simple. After everything we'd been through, simple sounded perfect. Vanessa called me directly for the first time since the divorce had been finalized. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear something underneath it. Maybe humility. Maybe just exhaustion. "I wanted you to know about Brad before Noah told you. And I wanted to acknowledge that you were right. About some things. Not everything," she added quickly. "But some things. Thank you for telling me. I also wanted to say that I won't fight the visitation schedule anymore. Noah clearly loves you, and maybe I've been seeing you as a threat when you were never trying to threaten anything. Maybe I was just scared." Scared of what? Of not being enough. Of Noah loving other people more than me. Of losing control of the one thing I thought I could control. She laughed bitterly. "Turns out you can't control love. Who knew?" "Vanessa, you're his mother. He loves you. Nothing I do changes that." "I know. I'm starting to know that. My therapist has been helping me understand that love isn't a finite resource. Noah loving you doesn't mean there's less love for me." It was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. I wasn't naive enough to think we'd become friends, but maybe we could become something like allies in the project of raising this child we both loved. 6 months later, on a regular Wednesday afternoon, Noah and I were building a blanket fort in my living room. He was explaining the complex rules for which toys could enter the fort and which had to stay outside, taking his role as fort architect very seriously. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetie." "Why did you keep all my stuff? Daddy said you bought the train set before I was even born. Why did you keep it when you didn't know me?" I sat back, considering how to answer. He was 5 now, old enough for some version of the truth, but young enough that it needed to be gentle. "Because I loved you before I met you," I said simply. "I knew you were going to be born, and I knew you'd be my grandson, and I wanted to have things ready for when I got to see you." "But you didn't see me for a long time." "No, I didn't. That was very hard." "Were you sad?" "Yes, very sad. I'm glad you're not sad anymore." He leaned against me, and I put my arm around him. "I love you, Grandma. I love you too, Noah. So very much." He squirmed away after a moment. 5-year-olds aren't made for long cuddles, and went back to his fort construction. But the moment stayed with me. This was what I'd been fighting for all along. Not perfection, not some fantasy of an ideal family where everyone got along and no one ever hurt each other. Just this. Ordinary afternoons with my grandson, building blanket forts and eating too many cookies and being loved without conditions. That evening, after Ryan picked Noah up, I sat in my quiet house with a cup of tea and thought about everything that had happened. 3 years of estrangement, months of manipulation and financial exploitation, a legal battle, a near divorce, then an actual divorce. Vanessa's failed engagement, Ryan's breakdown and rebuild, all of it painful, all of it messy, all of it the price of getting to this place. Was it worth it? The question felt almost irrelevant. It happened. I survived it. And on the other side of all that pain, I had a relationship with my grandson that was real and solid and based on genuine love rather than obligation or transaction. But more than that, I had myself back. The version of me that could set boundaries, that could say no to manipulation, that could walk away from toxicity while keeping the door open for genuine reconciliation, that could love fully without losing myself in the process. That was the real gift, even more valuable than the time with Noah. I'd learned that I was worth protecting, that my dignity mattered, that love wasn't something you could buy or beg for or negotiate into existence. It was something you gave freely and received freely, or it wasn't real at all. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan, a photo of Noah in the car, already asleep, still clutching the new dinosaur I'd bought him at the park earlier. Thank you for today, for every day. Love you, Mom. I typed back, love you too. See you Friday for dinner? It's a date. I'll bring dessert. Simple plans, normal family stuff. After everything, that felt like winning. I thought about the $25,000 I'd given them, money I'd never get back. About the lottery winnings I'd won and how I'd almost let people talk me into giving it all away to purchase love that should have been free. About the choices I'd made, some good, some terrible, all of them part of the journey that led here. If I could go back, would I change things? Would I refuse to give them that initial money? Would I set boundaries sooner? Would I walk away before the pain got so deep? Maybe. Probably. But I couldn't go back. I could only move forward with the wisdom I'd earned the hard way. And that wisdom told me that sometimes the people we love hurt us. Sometimes they use us. Sometimes they choose money over relationship, convenience over connection. Sometimes families are toxic and boundaries are necessary, and walking away is the only healthy choice. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes, people can change, can grow, can learn to do better. And when they do, when they genuinely try to repair what's been broken, it's worth being there for that. Worth taking the risk of being hurt again for the possibility of real reconciliation. The key was knowing the difference. Knowing when someone was genuinely changing versus just manipulating you into thinking they'd changed. Knowing when to stay and when to go. Knowing your own worth and refusing to accept less than you deserved. I'd learned all of that the hard way. Through tears and therapy and sleepless nights and financial losses and legal battles and confrontations that left me shaking. But I'd learned it, and now I got to live in the world those lessons had created. A world where I saw my grandson twice a week and had his school schedule on my refrigerator and knew his favorite foods and watched him grow and change and become more himself every day. A world where my son called me just to talk and asked my advice and was slowly becoming the man he was always capable of being. A world where I lived in a home I loved, surrounded by my paintings and my books and my memories, both painful and joyful. A world where I was enough, all by myself, and everything else was just extra grace. That night, I went into Noah's room and sat in the rocking chair by the window. The same chair I'd sat in 3 years ago, crying over a relationship that didn't exist. But now the room held memories. Noah's drawings taped to the walls, his extra clothes in the dresser, the blanket he preferred when he stayed over. Evidence of a life actually being lived here, not just imagined. I rocked slowly, listening to the house settle around me, and felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. Not the absence of pain. I still had scars from everything I'd been through, and probably always would. But peace anyway. The deep kind that comes from knowing you've fought the battles that needed fighting and survived them. That you've protected what needed protecting, including yourself. That you've loved without losing yourself, set boundaries without building walls, and walked away from toxicity without closing your heart. They tried to make me pay for love. Tried to turn family into a transaction where my value was determined by my bank account. And for a while, I'd let them. I'd been so desperate to be needed, to be included, to be a grandmother, that I'd accepted conditions no one should have to accept. But in the end, I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Love isn't something you can buy. It's something you build day by day through showing up and being present and caring without conditions. And the moment you start attaching price tags to it, whether in money or manipulation or emotional blackmail, It stops being love and becomes something else entirely. I'd paid that price, literally and figuratively, but I wasn't paying it anymore. I'd taken my life back, my dignity back, my sense of self-worth back, and in the process, I'd created space for genuine relationship to grow, the kind built on truth and respect and actual affection rather than need and exploitation and fear. My grandson loved me now because I'd shown up for him, not because I'd bought my way into his life. My son respected me now because I'd stood up for myself, not because I'd enabled his worst impulses. And I loved myself now in a way I hadn't for years because I'd finally learned that protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. As I stood to leave the room, I caught my reflection in the window. A 70-year-old woman with gray hair and wrinkles and a life that had been harder than she'd expected, but richer than she'd imagined. A woman who'd lost years with her grandson, but gained herself in the process. A woman who'd learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say no, and the bravest thing you can do is keep your heart open anyway. I turned off the light and closed the door, but not all the way. Just enough to let a little light in from the hallway, the way Noah liked it when he stayed over. Because that's what love looks like in the end. Not grand gestures or perfect moments or fairy tale reconciliations, just small, consistent acts of showing up. Just leaving the door open, not wide enough to let people hurt you, but enough to let light in. Just enough to let love in when it's real. And real love, the kind worth having, doesn't come with a price tag. It comes with presence, with patience, with the hard-earned wisdom that you can't buy what matters most. You can only build it day by ordinary day with people who are willing to build it with you. I had that now. Finally. After everything. And it was worth every tear, every sleepless night, every painful lesson. It was worth it all.